loved everyone that he knew, and he showed it by the way he treated them. We thank you for the way he
From those who love Sergeant Chris Reyka to those who didn't even know him, thousands traveled to bid a final farewell to the man who died with a badge of honor. It has been a full day of mourning for Sergeant Chris Reyka, and the burial has just wrapped up.
Today's funeral began at the Bank Atlantic Center in Broward County. Then thousands of law enforcement officers escorted the hearse north to Palm Beach County for burial. We have live team coverage beginning with News 12's Suzanne Boyd, who was at today's memorial service. Suzanne?
Well, Liz, we are just down the road from the burial here at the VA cemetery on 441 west of Lake Worth. But earlier today, we were at the actual memorial service. Now, that memorial service was at an arena in Broward County. It's the same arena where the Florida Panthers hockey team plays. That just goes to show you how many people wanted to come out and pay their last respects to Sergeant Reyka. We're told between 4,000 and 5,000 people attended, most of them law enforcement. Thousands came with heavy hearts and plenty of tissues to honor a sheriff's deputy killed in the line of duty.
He put on that uniform every day to try to make our society better. He gave his life for us.
He protected the people of Broward County for 18 years until Friday. Sergeant Chris Reyka was gunned down outside of Walgreens in Pompano Beach, hit by a barrage of bullets, one to the head. Reyka's killers are still out there, but his family is not bitter.
As a Christian, I harbor no anger towards the individuals that did this, just as I know Chris wouldn't.
Today's service wasn't about the way he died, though, more about the way he lived.
The last thing I'll always remember is our ritual. You walk him to the door in his uniform, give him a kiss, and he'd walk out. And I usually would run behind going, "Drive safe, Dad." And he'd go back and say, "I always do."
To me, he was not only a father, but also a mentor, my best friend, and a hero.
He really was an awesome guy, and that's my memory of him. And Aunt Kim and family, I love you guys so much. And he's looking down on us right now saying, "Thank you, everybody, for being here." And he's blowing kisses to everybody. I know it.
Wreaths lined the stage at the Bank Atlantic Center in Sunrise, and photos of the proud father of four appeared on a jumbo screen. But many can't help but wonder why.
I've witnessed some serious things in my life, this being one of them. Bad things. And it's made me very hardened, cynical, questioning of my faith.
Now, an American flag drapes Reyka's coffin, a top honor to a man who touched so many lives. Now, the burial, we understand, is just now wrapping up. We are seeing some law enforcement, some motorcycles, some patrol cars now leaving the VA cemetery here on 441 west of Lake Worth. Now, coming up tonight at 6, we are going to hear from Chris Reyka's wife, what she had to say at the funeral, and also what happened immediately after she stopped talking. We're going to have that coming up tonight at 6. But first, we continue our live team coverage with News 12's Chuck Weber. He's going to tell us more about the burial. Chuck?
Suzanne, Sergeant Chris Reyka, not only a longtime law officer, he also served in the U.S. Marine Corps, and that is why he's being buried here on the grounds of the South Florida VA National Cemetery. The motorcade, the procession coming from the Bank Atlantic Center, started arriving here for the burial just after 3:30. It took the whole procession nearly an hour to get here, and the ceremony, which, as you mentioned, Suzanne, has just wrapped up, was to include honors given for someone who served their country, and in the case of Sergeant Reyka, served the public as a law officer. There was to be a firing of guns, playing of taps, a flight of helicopters, and the presentation of flags to Reyka's family. Law officers and Marines taking part in the honor details. One of the Marines is a reservist based in the West Palm unit, who's also a Broward Sheriff's deputy. He got to know Sergeant Reyka about a year ago as they went through sergeant training together and were promoted at the same time.
Great-natured man, you know, always had a smile on his face, always had a joke to tell. Yeah, great loss, not only to the sheriff's office, but to his family and to the state of Florida. We don't like it. We don't like these days, but we have to accept them. This is what we've sworn to do, both the Marines and law enforcement.
The new veteran cemetery here has only been open since April, yet already there have been 1,100 burials. And today, here, Sergeant Reyka, another, receiving the honor of being buried here. Live near Wellington, Chuck Weber, WPEC News 12.
And Chuck, as you mentioned, the burial procession from the Bank Atlantic Center to the VA cemetery near Wellington caused some traffic troubles for drivers as parts of the Turnpike and then Lake Worth Road were closed for the hundreds and hundreds of vehicles. News 12's Paul Cavanaugh is live in Sky 12 with a look at any backups we may be having now as this burial has just finished. Paul?
Yes, Liz. Right now we're taking a look at a closure of 441 just south of Lantana Road near the burial site as folks are now being allowed to leave. And, of course, once this traffic mess gets a chance to clear up, we will be looking at a reopening of Lantana Road. Now, so far at this hour, the other roads that were closed earlier have been reopened. So, again, this is a scene that is beginning to wrap up, and we're going to be looking at some delays in the traffic area, at least along 441 for the next hour.
All right, we lost Paul Cavanaugh there. Now, the traffic problem for some people tonight as they head home, but today is all about remembering and honoring Sergeant Chris Reyka. But that doesn't mean the investigation into his murder has been put on hold today. News 12's Al Peffley joins us live at the scene where it all began at the Walgreens in Pompano Beach. Al, give us a recap as to the events as far as the investigation goes today.
Eric, there's a makeshift memorial that's been set up here at the Walgreens since Sergeant Reyka died last week. You can see people have left all sorts of things here, flowers, balloons, stuffed animals, you name it. In that instant when the shots were fired, it's a tragedy that has rocked his department and has stirred feelings of compassion and anxiety for people across South Florida.
It all started at 1:20 in the morning last Friday when Sergeant Chris Reyka pulled behind a Walgreens in Pompano Beach. He saw a suspicious car and ran a license plate to see if the car was stolen. That's when cops say somebody stepped from the car and fired 10 times. Reyka died in a hail of bullets.
There was no accident in this shooting. It was an aggressive rushing to execute and to assassinate our deputy.
Within minutes, the search was on for a white car with tinted windows, which sped away from the scene and was caught on a surveillance camera. Friday morning during rush hour, police started stopping similar-looking cars. It later turned out the ones they stopped had nothing to do with Reyka's murder. At about 3 Friday afternoon, troopers near Fort Pierce pulled over a Greyhound bus on the Turnpike, acting on a tip the killer might be on board. 2 hours later, about 5 o'clock, troopers stopped another Greyhound bus on the Turnpike near St. Cloud in Central Florida. Again, the killer was not on that bus either. Investigators have been at it 24 hours a day, running down roughly 600 leads that have been phoned in. All along, they've hoped a $106,000 reward would be enough to get somebody out there who knows something to pick up the phone. They're still waiting for that big break nearly a week since Sergeant Reyka was gunned down.
And in their drive to try to catch whoever did this, they have printed up these posters with a picture of that car they've been looking for. And the poster, of course, stresses that $106,000 reward. But unfortunately, a department spokesman told me earlier today they really cannot say yet that they are close to making an arrest. Now let's turn to News 12's Suzanne Boyd, who's standing by with more on all of this from Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw. Suzanne?
Well, Al, I'll tell you that I was looking on the National Registry for fallen officers last night, and I would say 70% of the officers that died in the line of duty were killed by gunfire. Joining us now is Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw. And Sheriff Bradshaw, what do you make of this? Is it a more dangerous time to be a cop?
Well, there's no doubt about that, Suzanne. But, you know, out of every tragedy, there's something that is positive that can come out of this. And I think what has happened here is this needs to be a wake-up call for the community.
A wake-up call?
Absolutely. Law enforcement is the most visible form of government. And for these thugs to gun down a law enforcement officer is a direct strike against the community and government in itself. They didn't just kill a law enforcement officer. They killed a husband. They killed a father. They killed a brother. And that's a strike right at the community itself. The community needs to be outraged. They need to be outraged that these type of thugs can be out there. They need to demand stronger penalties from the court to keep these people in jail. And they need to demand that violence in our community stops because it's been increasing every single year.
And I bet you're surprised there has not been an arrest yet.
Well, no, this is a very difficult case to solve. But I'm confident at the end of the day, however long that takes, we're going to find these people. Law enforcement will track them down and hold them accountable.
All right, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw joining us live. Thank you so much, and back to you guys now.
Thank you, Suzanne. And the sheriff is right. It is a dangerous time to be a cop. In the last 10 days, 3 Florida deputies have been shot, 2 fatally. Today in Hillsborough County, a Florida deputy, also a father of 4, died in the line of duty. Sheriff Sergeant Ron Harrison was shot in his patrol car this morning. Investigators say he was gunned down by a man who was later killed by SWAT officers. It's not clear if the shooter was in a car or if he ambushed Sergeant Harrison from the side of the road. Stay with News 12 for complete coverage of this sad day for Sergeant Chris Reyka's family, friends, and colleagues. We have live crews throughout Broward and Palm Beach counties with more live reports still to come.